Today's drawings are going to be some cylinder lifelike objects. So if you would get your sketchbook out and turn to page 17, we are going to do a couple of different cylinder objects in a lifelike situation. We're also going to talk about an artist and signing your artwork. So to get started, we are going to do a cafe table. And in doing so, what I'd like you to do on the page, leaving a lot of space down here for the legs of our table, is a horizontal line. Again, that's a guideline. I guess I did not, I'm going to work it into my table, so it's okay if you draw rather dark. And again, leaving lots of space for table legs. So in doing the cylinder table, it's a round table, but it appears, if you look at it from the side, as an oval, which takes on the characteristics of a cylinder. What I'd like you to do in doing the top of the table is choose your gentle smile mark. So looking at the sides of your table, and pick a kind of eyeballing the middle of that line and picking the bottom of your gentle smile. Then take your straight edge and mark it. Slide then up here to mark right here to get us set up, and this will be for your frown. After you've slightly curved the corners of your table, this will be your smile bottom. And again, just because of how my hand and arm work, I slightly move my sketchbook. So put in your gentle smile. When you're done with that, put in your gentle frown. Because this is three-dimensional, we're going to draw the edge of our table. So in drawing the edge of our table, I'm going to kind of curve it inward a bit. That's very subtle. And now parallel my gentle smile. Again, as an artist, I'm going to sketch lightly and be sure of what I want. When I get what I want, then I darken it in. Oops, got a little crazy here. I'm then going to take my blender stick right now and take some of this lead and shade that edge in. Now what I want to do is I want to draw, this is just simply my tabletop, but a nice size mug sitting onto my table. The first thing I'm going to do is put some parallel lines indicating the side of my mug. My parallel lines there. laying this. I'm going to close this up to give me a rectangle. And now we're working with a pretty small area, but kind of eyeball it and make sure that your tabletop obviously is bigger than your mug, that your mug isn't teeny tiny, but that your mug isn't also as big as your table. Now what I'm going to do is, this is a cylinder, and you probably could do this without even doing all the markings, is I'm going to put my gentle smile. I'm going to parallel that, gentle smile, parallel that. The distance from here to here is where you're going to find your frown. Now erase, because this isn't going to be a see-through mug, but now erase, you don't see the back of the table. So get that line out of there and get this line out of here. I'm also going to get this line out of here. So you see a cylinder going on here. But I still want to give it all the details as I have always in my cylinder. Paralleling the smile right here to give an edge of that coffee mug. Paralleling in here. Now I know it's getting really small. I want to make it look as though there's truly coffee in there, so it just simply takes a little frown line here and darken in that shade. And now give it the appearance that there's actually liquid in my cup. Down here, I'm going to thicken the bottom of my mug. Very similar to how you did the can. I'm also going to put a handle on here. My handle is going to attach with these little rectangular, and I'm simply going to come up, go down, and around. So have some fun with a handle. With your blender stick, your dirty blender stick, I can do a little rub in my liquid there. Shade this in slightly. Notice that my handle goes over my side edge of my mug and over here because it is attached. And now just for little fun details, because mine is hot liquid, I've drawn lines there. Actually, what I like to do is I like to render those lines better because that gives me some soft lead. So I'm just doing a little indication of heat. And it's coming out of the... We're going to also add some detail to this table, make it kind of like a mosaic sort of table. There's lots of things you could do with your tabletop. You could put a napkin underneath your coffee mug if you wanted. It could be a glass tabletop. I'm going to show you a really easy way. And if you think back of maybe a mosaic tile sort of, basically wherever the deep, maybe you can still see your markings, the deep smile and the deep frown, I'm going to take my straight edge and I'm put a straight line here. Then it's almost like I'm going to do an orange. So I'm going to divide in here. Use your straight edge. That obviously helps it, makes it look more sharp and crisp. And I'm going to do a division here. So it might be easier if you mark here the dividing points. Now, you end up losing it behind the cup, which is completely fine. Going through the middle. As far as a little shading and there being some grout line, I would take my 6B pencil just for softness. And in each one of these triangles, if you notice, I'm drawing really lightly, putting a little bit of lead down. In each one of those triangles, laid a little bit of lead down. Gonna take my blender stick, shade it around. And my goal is to give a little indication of some grout lines. The larger you draw, the easier it is to do that. So hopefully you have not drawn a little tiny, tiny table top. So here's our tabletop. We're now going to put some cafe legs onto this tabletop, and that's why I wanted you to leave some good amount of space down here. I'm going to put a little bit more shading. I don't want to make it look like my drawing is outlined necessarily, but I like to create the lines with some shading. To do legs on this and to make it look somewhat like a cafe table, we are going to start with the middle legs. Now, in order for the table not to be tippy, of course, the legs need to be the same length, but that isn't necessarily how we see them. We know that that happens, but it doesn't always show that way. Let's see that I'm just, okay. So, my first two legs. My front leg will be my longest. My front leg will come from here and it will attach to my tabletop. So I'm going to draw a triangle and my front leg is going to go down. And I'm going to have it a little fancy. I'm going to put a little foot on it. So actually, I'm going to have mine coming in further because oftentimes a cafe table is tall. So you notice I sketched in lightly where I want it. my back leg is going to appear a little bit shorter, and my triangle, to give the illusion it's the back leg, will not be as big. So notice here's a smaller triangle. Notice here is a larger triangle, smaller triangle. This leg will come down. And again, I'm just going to put like here. So I sketched, but I definitely need to use a straight edge. So I'm going to straight edge down. I'm going to double my straight edge because it's a wrought iron cafe table, but it has a bit of thickness to it, of course. So that will be my over here, keeping it parallel with this leg. I want the same thickness also as this leg. So I'm adding some lead in there. Notice that my feet of my table, just to give them a little dimension, a little fancy. And then often there might be a little tiny rubber stopper on the bottom so it doesn't scratch the floor. Do your best getting these to match in size. And again, thicken these legs up. Maybe not thicken them up, but put some lead to show the wrought iron. Now, since it's a tall cafe table, here are the trickiest legs. These legs are going to swing in toward the middle here. What I would suggest you do is very lightly maybe what I should have done first is indicated my back leg is my shortest, my front leg is my longest, and now and it may take you a few, as it did me. Looks pretty scratchy. I'm going to look here. I want to put this one probably my deepest part of the curve. So, as an artist often does, is they sketch lightly till they get what they know they want. And the goal is to make these look somewhat mirrored in the same curve. I'm going to move my book like this because it's easier with my hand. So before I get too crazy with thickening them up, take a look at them and look, do the curves look similar? And that takes a little bit. So as you've decided on your side legs, when you get them looking like you're happy with them, that they look even, then thicken them up. I like to put the little feet. And notice that they are the same length, with the front one being longer, the back one being shorter, even though we know that it is actually, that's what it appears, but we know they're all the same length or that table would be falling down. I then need to take my eraser because as I was sketching, I have a lot of little sketchy lines that I want to get out of there. So erase any. Now, this table would collapse on itself if somebody put a lot of pressure on the tabletop, because, yikes, the more I draw, the worse it's getting. Need to clean up this one leg a little bit. So in order for the table to actually stand, I need to put a support in here. A support would be probably a metal ring that would be right in the deepest curve of the table. So this metal ring would follow the parallel here. Front leg goes to side leg, goes to side leg. So looking at this, it curves here. I lift it there. So look to yourself. So now I have the support holding the table legs. And again, you can play around with that. Now we want this on standing on a floor, so I want to put the edge of my wall out here, 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 and here. Probably going to see a bit of shadowing. Slightly render with your pencil. Rub it. And now I want to talk just a moment about artist's signature. First of all, what I want to show you is what not to do. So what not to do is to just randomly on your picture, no matter what you're doing, is just randomly write your name on the top here. Generally doesn't look super great. Actually, what probably looks interesting is to work your signature into your piece of work. So, your signature can be your first initial, your last name. It can be your first name, your last initial. It could be just your first name. It could be just your last name. That's completely up to you. But here's what I don't want you to do. I often sign my work, my first name, with my last name. But this here is generally pretty distracting to my picture. So I'm going to say, don't do this. I'm going to say, don't be distracting. Or take viewer away from your nice work. So again, don't just randomly sign it. I actually like to generally sign kind of to the right side, and I'm going to show you a couple different signatures. One is I am going to erase my line here. I'm actually going to enlarge it a bit here. And what I like to do is I like to work it into my picture with something like that. Another thing you could do is you could sign right here. Against a leg. You could even sign, I got to erase a little bit of my shadowing, but another possibility would be to sign in your table edge. But again, I'm going to suggest to you not to be distracting, but work it in, make it interesting somewhere in your picture. And again, a lot of times you will see signatures down toward the right corner. That's a really popular place. The other thing I advise against is signing right down at the edge of your paper. Because what happens is if you decide that you want to frame this, but you've signed it your paper, oftentimes the frame will cover your signature. That's why I like to hide my signature somewhere in my picture.